James Evans.
Diolch, Llywed, and I'd like to thank the Cabinet Secretary for your statement this afternoon, also your written statement this morning, and for speaking with me prior to the release of these statements earlier today. Can I just say it is encouraging from you, Cabinet Secretary, that you have taken on board the concerns that I have raised with you on the future of farming support here in Wales, and I believe it is a positive step to show that you are listening to the industry, the unions, and those 12,500 people who responded to the consultation. The delay on the implementation of the Sustainable Farming Scheme and committing to the rolling forward of BPS until 2025, something which I and the Welsh Conservatives have called on, and we're very pleased to see that this is happening to give that longer-term security for our farmers across Wales. However, for this scheme to be truly successful, ensuring a broad range of voices is heard is crucial. Therefore, I have some key questions regarding future collaboration and stakeholder engagement. I'm interested, Cabinet Secretary, how the Ministerial Roundtable is going to be structured to guarantee balance and representation from all farming sectors and relevant stakeholders, including those with specific concerns about aspects of the Sustainable Farming Scheme. Can you also inform us today of what date you intend for this roundtable to start? Because you said last week that you would burn the midnight oil to make sure we get these things delivered at pace. It'd be very interesting to know what timescales you've set on setting this up. And can you give some assurance to the industry as well that when people partake in these groups, that they're actually that their voices are going to be listened to, because something that comes through the co-design phase, that people fed into this and it wasn't listened to. So I'd like some assurances from you that they are going to be listened to. The announcement that you made this morning mentioned the Sustainable Farming Scheme, including payments for social value, and this is a very interesting concept, but I think clarity on what that is actually needed, because I do hope this is a real positive shift, and at long last the government here recognises that farming adds social value to Wales in terms of environmental, cultural and also the economic value to our communities. We also know that the impact of the initial Sustainable Farming Scheme was devastating for our farm businesses, with 5,500 job losses across the industry. So I'd be very interested to know, I know Clea Griffiths has asked you this question as well, when are we going to see an updated impact assessment? Because if we're having changes to the scheme, obviously we're going to need a new impact assessment to see what any changes are going to do. As I said earlier, I and my group welcome the extension to BPS into 2025. This does provide some degree of certainty for our farm businesses. I know you said you'll be making an announcement in due course, but I think people today will want to know what that BPS rate is going to be. Will it remain unchanged into 2025? And what additional schemes like woodland creation are also going to be carried forward going forward into 2025? This pause does give us that opportunity to look at these proposals again, and we do need to see substantive changes to the Sustainable Farming Scheme, because in its current form it doesn't work. But if we need to get it to work, it needs to work for all farmers right across Wales, because the farmers that I speak to, and I'm sure the farmers that you've been speaking to, Cabinet Secretary, still have issues around the tree planting, around common land, around tenant farmers, around triple SIs, and some of the universal actions which some farmers find insulting and over-bureaucratic. And we do need to have some more detail from you of how you intend these changes to feed into your ministerial roundtable to make sure that those changes are actually going to be implemented by government, so that actually the industry can get on board and actually deliver this scheme for you. The statement mentions considering the outcomes for the carbon sequestration review for informing payment methodologies. What I'd like to know, will the review look beyond the sequestration of trees and consider all different types of grass and also hedgerows, because that hasn't actually been looked at before, and I think we need to have a big piece of work around the carbon sequestration of grass. I was going to talk about animal welfare, but you said you'll be telling us about that in due course, and also you're going to be making a statement hopefully on TB. I hope it's been made to this chamber and not written, because I think it gives us an opportunity to scrutinise any work which you're doing. Cabinet Secretary, I've only got about 30 seconds left, but from my point of view, this announcement today is welcomed. Absolutely. It's been welcomed by the unions, and the people I've spoke to on the phone, my friends and colleagues that I've got in the industry, welcome it as well. And I put an open offer to you, Cabinet Secretary. I'm willing to work with you in a very open and pragmatic and constructive way to make sure we can have a scheme that delivers for our farmers. But I said earlier, we do need to see fundamental change if we're going to make it work. because that's what I want to see. I want to see a scheme that works, that delivers for future generations, delivers for our farmers now, and ensures we have a vibrant rural economy in Wales, because doing that will deliver all the environmental, cultural and biodiversity benefits that you want to see, and also the thriving farm businesses that I'm sure everybody around this chamber wants to see as well. Diolch.
James, thank you very much, and thank you for your comments welcoming the announcement that we've made on the way forward. And just to say, it is a way forward. I used the rugby analogy earlier on an interview. A lot of what we are doing now is the preparation for the rollout of a scheme where there's actually a lot of agreement already. The framework, the objectives, not only in terms of food production, but also social value, environmental imperatives, climate change imperatives. But it's right to actually do some more work on those areas which have been identified in the consultation, which indeed we haven't seen the final, the full analysis of the consultation, but I've seen some of the interim findings, and it's pretty clear and obvious where those areas that we need a bit more work are. But it is some more work, and that's where the ministerial roundtable becomes very important. And the way that that is worked, and the reason it is a ministerial roundtable, is there'll be a lot of work behind the scenes, not only with farmers and with the farming unions and so on, but also with the environmental and the wildlife groups as well, to make sure that we get the details right so that then we can proceed. And we proceed in a way that all farmers can be part of this, because we need farmers to feel that they want to step up the mark and be part of this, but we also need to deliver those wider imperatives. You covered such a lot of ground there, James, but just to say very briefly, many of the issues that you covered are exactly the ones that the Ministerial Roundtable and the work that goes underneath it is designed to flesh out. So I'm not going to preempt it. So when you talked about timescales, you will not have to wait long until we make announcements, both on the membership but also on the way that that ministerial roundtable will take all this work forward, including, by the way, the streams underneath it. There's 2 or 3 areas that we want to bring forward underneath. One of those, by the way, is on sequestration. And it is trees and more, because arguments have been put forward to say that there are other ways also to do sequestration. We need to test those arguments as well, not just accept them, we need to test them. So I think that's the work that needs to be done. We will be making a subsequent announcement on TV, as you say. Economic impact, one of the conversations we've had with the farmers' unions is it was right for Welsh Government to put in front of the public the economic analysis that we had, but it was actually 2 years out of date. And it was based on a previous iteration of proposals. It wasn't even based on the most recent ones. However, we need to do an updated economic analysis, but the economic analysis needs to be done when we know the details of what that scheme will look like and not before. Because we need to say to farmers, well, here's the economic analysis, and here's the tools that we're going to lead through this transition as well. And you know, some of this could be actually creating new opportunities within our rural areas as well there. So many of the things you covered there are things that the Ministerial Roundtable, and just one final, just to clarify, this isn't a pause whatsoever. There's actually work to be done now in order that we can get to a point where everybody's on board with the details of the full rollout of a sustainable farming scheme that will be there, I think, if we get this right, for the generation ahead. It'll be dynamic, but if we get this right in this 7-8 years after EU withdrawal, then we put certainty, not just on farming, but on what we're trying to do as well with landscape management, on climate change, on biodiversity and everything else for many years to come. But thank you, James, for the welcome of this.